Amelia didn't know the man she hired to protect her was the king in disguise, or that their fates had been converging long before they met. She didn't know that beneath his scarred hands and careful silence lived a desperate search for answers only she could unlock. All she knew was that if she didn't make it to Silvermere by the next full moon, she'd lose everything her grandmother had left her. And the roads between here and there were littered with the bodies of women who'd tried to travel alone. The mercenary hall smelled like leather and old smoke. Amelia stood in the doorway, her travel pack heavy on her shoulder, trying not to look as terrified as she felt. Around her, men drank and gambled and eyed her with varying degrees of interest, none of it friendly. She'd brought 200 silver marks. It was everything she had left after paying her grandmother's burial costs, selling the cottage, settling debts she hadn't known existed. 200 marks to hire someone capable, enough to get her across 300 miles of increasingly dangerous territory. The problem was, she had no idea how to tell who was capable and who was just good at looking dangerous. A man with a braided beard approached, reeking of ale. "Need something, sweetheart?" Amelia lifted her chin, channeling her grandmother's steel. "I need to hire a bodyguard, someone who can get me to Silvermere safely." His laugh was ugly. "Silvermere? That's raider country now. You'd need an army, not a bodyguard." "Then I'll hire an army." "With what coin?" She pulled the purse from her belt, letting him hear the weight of it. His eyes sharpened with greed, and Amelia immediately regretted the gesture. "Well now." He stepped closer, backing her against the door frame. "Maybe we can work something out. I'll take you to Silvermere, for the right price." "I'm paying silver, nothing else." "See, that's where we disagree." "She's not interested." The voice came from somewhere behind braided beard, low, quiet, and carrying an authority that made the man freeze mid-sentence. Amelia looked past him to find a stranger stepping out of the shadows near the back corner. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair pulled back and eyes the color of amber in firelight. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, and his hands, rough, calloused, rested casually near the knives at his belt. But it was the way every other man in the hall went silent that told her everything she needed to know. Braided Beard backed away without another word, melting into the crowd like he'd never existed. The stranger crossed the room with measured steps, stopping just close enough for her to catch his scent, pine and steel and something wilder underneath. "You need a guard?" he asked. "Yes." "To Silvermere?" "Yes." His impossibly amber eyes studied her face, searching for something she didn't understand. Then he nodded once. 200 marks, he said. "I'll get you there alive." "How do I know you're capable?" The corner of his mouth shifted, not quite a smile. "You don't. But you're here because you're desperate, and I'm the only one in this room who won't try to renegotiate terms halfway through." Amelia tried to hide her nervous gulp. "What's your name?" "Cade." "I'm Amelia." "I know." At her startled look, he added, "You asked about guards at 3 other establishments before coming here. Word travels." She wasn't sure if that was reassuring or terrifying. "When can we leave, Cade?" "Dawn. Meet me at the eastern gate." He turned to go, then paused. "And Amelia, don't tell anyone else where you're going. The roads are dangerous enough without advertising your route." He left before she could ask what he meant. "Before we continue, please take 2 seconds to like this video. It tells me you want more stories like this." Amelia barely slept that night, her mind spinning through worst-case scenarios and half-formed escape plans. But when dawn broke pale and cold over the city, she found herself at the eastern gate with her pack and her grandmother's letter tucked against her heart. Cade was already there, standing beside 2 horses, one midnight black, one dappled gray. He'd changed into travel leathers that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, and in the morning light she could see more scars, one along his jaw, another disappearing beneath his collar. "You came," he said, like he'd genuinely expected her to reconsider. "I keep my word, Cade." Something shifted in his expression. "So do I." He helped her mount the gray mare, his hands careful at her waist, lingering half a second longer than necessary. Their eyes met briefly, and something passed between them, a flicker of heat that made her breath catch. Cade looked away first, releasing her like she'd burned him. Then he swung onto the black stallion with easy grace and led them out through the gate. They rode in silence for the first hour, Amelia hyper-aware of his presence beside her. Way he scanned the tree line constantly, never fully relaxed. The way his hands rested near the weapons at his belt, knives, a short sword, something else she couldn't identify. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked finally, unable to bear the quiet. "Doing what?" "Guarding people." He was quiet long enough that she thought he wouldn't answer. Long enough to know when someone's running from something versus running toward it. You're running toward. "How can you tell?" "The way you sit, like you're afraid the horse will turn around if you're not paying attention." He glanced at her. "So what's in Silvermere?" "My inheritance. My grandmother's vineyard." "Your grandmother recently passed?" The grief was still raw enough to sting. 6 weeks ago? "I'm sorry." The sympathy in his voice sounded genuine, which somehow made it worse. Amelia blinked hard against the sudden burn behind her eyes. "She raised me after my parents died, taught me everything, how to read weather, how to prune vines, how to—" She trailed off. "How to what?" "How to defend myself." Amelia touched the knife hidden in her boot. "She said never to assume someone would save me." Cade's expression flickered with something that might have been approval. "Smart woman." She was a magistrate before she retired, one of the few women in the Southern Territories to hold the position. Pride crept into her voice despite the ache. "She didn't suffer fools, and she didn't bend to pressure." "Sounds like someone else I know." Amelia felt heat climb her cheeks. "Me? You don't know me." "Not yet." The way he said it, certain, almost intimate, made her pulse skip. They rode until midday before stopping to rest the horses. Cade moved through the process with efficient grace, checking the animals, scanning their surroundings, pulling out dried meat and hard cheese from his pack. "You've done this route before," Amelia observed, watching him work. "A few times. Why? What brings you to the Southern Territories?" His hands stilled for just a moment, as if considering how much to share. "I'm looking for someone." "Who?" "Someone who went missing." He didn't elaborate, and something in his tone suggested she shouldn't push, but Amelia had never been good at reading warning signs. "Family?" Cade's jaw tightened. "Yes." "I'm sorry. How long have they been gone?" 2 years. The words came out rough, scraped raw. 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days. The precision of it tugged at her heart. "You think they're still alive?" "I have to." He met her eyes, and the desperate hope buried in his gaze made her chest ache. "Because if I stop believing that, I stop being able to breathe." Amelia understood that kind of grief, the kind that lived in your bones, that colored every moment. "My grandmother used to say that hope is the thing that keeps us human, that the moment we stop hoping is the moment we give up our souls." "Your grandmother sounds like she was worth knowing." "She was." Amelia smiled despite the sting. "She would have liked you, I think. She appreciated competence." "Just competence?" And people who didn't waste words. Cade's mouth quirked. Then we would have gotten along fine. They ate in companionable silence, and Amelia found herself studying him when she thought he wasn't looking. The way he held himself, coiled and ready. The intelligence in his eyes that suggested education beyond what most mercenaries possessed. The calluses on his hands that spoke of weapons training, but also something else. Writing, maybe? Or detailed work? "Why are you staring?" he asked without looking up. Heat flooded her cheeks at being caught so obviously. "I'm trying to figure you out. Any luck?" "Not yet." She paused. "You move like someone trained in combat, not just street fighting. Observant. My grandmother taught me to pay attention." Amelia leaned back against a tree. "So what's your story? How does someone with your training end up hiring themselves out to desperate women at mercenary halls?" Cade was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Sometimes the work we're meant to do and the work we choose are different things. I choose this." "You think traveling these roads will help you find the person you're looking for?" His eyes met hers, and the intensity there stole her breath. "I think answers hide in unlikely places, and I think the people who take women from these territories are the same people who took someone I loved." The pieces clicked together. "You're not just a guard, you're hunting them." Bingo. A chill ran through her. She was traveling with a man on a revenge mission. Then why take my contract? Why waste time protecting me when you could be investigating? Cade's gaze didn't waver. "Because maybe protecting you is part of the investigation. Because 3 women vanished on this route in the last 6 months. I want to know who's taking them and why." He paused, something shifting in his expression. "And because the moment I saw you, I knew walking away wasn't an option." "Why not?" His voice dropped lower, rougher. "Something told me you were worth protecting." The air between them suddenly felt charged, crackling with something Amelia didn't have words for. She should look away, break the moment, remember that he was hired help, and she was just another contract. Instead, she heard herself say, "I'm glad you took the job." "So am I." They rode through the afternoon, the landscape gradually shifting from rolling farmland to denser forest. Cade's tension increased with every mile, his attention sharpening until Amelia could practically feel him vibrating with awareness. "What's wrong?" she asked. "We're being followed." Her heart kicked. "How do you know?" "Crows scattered about a mile back. Something disturbed them, and the forest is too quiet." He steered his horse closer to hers. "When I tell you to run, you run. Don't look back. Don't wait for me. Just ride hard for that ridge ahead, and don't stop until you're over it." "I'm not leaving you here." "Yes, you are." His voice was steel. "That's the job, Amelia. I keep you alive. Everything else is secondary." Before she could argue, 5 men materialized from the trees, spread across the road, weapons drawn, faces covered with cloth. The leader grinned, yellow teeth visible beneath his mask. "Well now, what do we have here?" Cade positioned his horse between Amelia and the bandits, his hand drifting to his sword. "Move aside. We don't want trouble." "See, that's unfortunate, because we were told to expect a woman traveling alone." The leader's eyes cut to Amelia. "Told she'd be easy pickings." Ice flooded Amelia's veins. Someone had given them her route. "She's not alone," Cade said calmly, "and she's under my protection." "Your protection?" The leader laughed. "It's 5 against 1, friend. Maybe you should reconsider who needs protecting." Cade smiled, and Amelia felt a jolt of alarm at how sharp his teeth were. His eyes flashed brighter amber, almost glowing in the fading light. 5 is barely worth the effort. Then he moved. Amelia had seen men fight before, drunken brawls at taverns, territorial disputes in marketplaces. But this was something else entirely. Cade didn't just fight. He moved like violence was a language he'd been born speaking. His sword cleared its sheath with a whisper of steel, and the first bandit went down before he'd finished drawing his own weapon. The second lunged with a club. Cade sidestepped, caught the man's wrist, twisted until something cracked, then drove his blade through the bandit's shoulder. Not a killing blow, but incapacitating. The third and fourth came together, coordinated. Cade spun between them, his sword deflecting one attack while his boot caught the other man's knee with a sickening crunch. A knife appeared in his free hand. She hadn't even seen him draw it, and he buried it in the fourth bandit's thigh. The leader backed away, eyes wide with sudden understanding. "Wait, I know you're..." Cade's blade found his throat before he could finish. "Tell whoever sent you that the next person who touches her won't live long enough to regret it." He withdrew the sword, and the leader stumbled backward, hand pressed to his bleeding neck, before turning and running into the forest. His companions, who could still walk, scrambled after him. Cade cleaned his blade on a fallen bandit's cloak, his breathing barely elevated, then turned to Amelia. "You all right?" She couldn't speak. Couldn't process what she'd just witnessed. The brutal efficiency, the controlled fury, the way he'd dismantled 5 armed men like they were children. "Amelia?" He crossed to her, his hands gentle as they framed her face. "Look at me. Are you hurt?" "No, I'm..." Her voice shook. "Who are you? Really?" Something flickered across his expression. "Someone who keeps his promises. Those men knew my route, knew I'd be traveling, alone." The implications crashed over her. "Someone wanted me dead before I reached Silvermere." "Yes." "Who?" "I don't know yet." Cade's thumbs brushed her cheekbones, the gesture achingly tender despite the blood still on his hands. "But I'm going to find out." "This isn't what you signed up for." "Actually, it's exactly what I signed up for." He held her gaze. "I told you I'd get you to Silvermere alive. That promise stands, no matter who's trying to stop us." Amelia found herself leaning into his touch without meaning to, drawn by something she couldn't name. He smelled like pine and steel and something wilder, something that called to a part of her she'd never known existed. "We should keep moving," she managed. "We should." But he didn't pull away immediately, just stood there, his hands cradling her face, his eyes searching hers like he was memorizing every detail. Then he stepped back, the loss of contact almost painful, and helped her remount. They rode hard until sunset, putting distance between themselves and the attack site. Cade finally called a halt in a small clearing ringed by ancient oaks, defensible and hidden from the road. "We'll camp here tonight," he said, already moving to tend the horses. Amelia watched him work, this man who'd killed with such brutality then touched her with such gentleness. The contradiction should have frightened her. Instead, it made her want to understand him. "You were holding back," she said quietly. He glanced up from checking the black stallion's hooves. "With those bandits, you were holding back." She moved closer. "That wasn't your full strength, was it?" Cade's expression shuddered. "You're imagining things." "No, I'm not. I saw it. And when that leader recognized you..." She tilted her head. "Who did he think you were?" "No one important." "You're lying, Cade." He stood, his amber eyes catching the last rays of sunlight. "I am. But it's a lie meant to protect you." "From what?" "From getting involved in things that could get you killed." Amelia laughed without humor. "Someone already tried to kill me today. I think I'm already involved. Cade was silent for a long moment, clearly warring with himself. Finally, he said, "The person I'm looking for, the one who went missing, she was investigating something. A pattern of disappearances in the Southern Territories. Women vanishing from their homes, their families too frightened to report it. She asked questions, followed leads, and then," his voice roughened, "then she disappeared too. You think whoever took her sent those bandits after me? I think the same people who've been making women disappear don't want you reaching Silvermere for a reason. And I think your grandmother's vineyard might be connected to all of this." Amelia's mind raced. My grandmother was a magistrate. She had access to records, complaints, legal disputes. Exactly. Cade began building a fire with practiced efficiency. What if she knew something? What if that's why someone wants you dead before you can claim your inheritance and discover whatever she left behind? The possibility sent ice through her veins. You think my grandmother was killed? I think powerful people don't like inconvenient questions, and I think your grandmother spent her life asking them. Amelia sank onto a fallen log, her legs suddenly unsteady. She'd assumed her grandmother's death was natural. The woman had been 73 after all. But what if it wasn't? What if someone had... Hey. Cade knelt in front of her, his hands covering hers. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything. No, I needed to know. She met his eyes. If someone hurt her, I want them to pay. They will. The promise in his voice was absolute. I swear it. They sat in silence while Cade finished building the fire. Then he produced bread and cheese from his pack, along with dried apples and a flask of something that smelled like honey and fire. Eat, he said, handing her a portion. You need your strength. Amelia ate mechanically, her mind still spinning, but as the food settled in her stomach and the fire's warmth seeped into her bones, exhaustion began to creep in. You should sleep, Cade said, spreading out a bedroll near the fire. I'll keep watch. You need sleep too. I'll be fine. Cade. Amelia. His voice was gentle but firm. This is my job. Let me keep you safe. She wanted to argue, but the events of the day crashed over her all at once. The fear, the violence, the revelations. Instead, she curled up on the bedroll he'd laid out, pulling her cloak tight around her shoulders. Thank you, she murmured. For today. For not running when things got dangerous. I don't run. I'm starting to see that. She felt his smile. Get some rest. Amelia closed her eyes, lulled by the fire's crackle and the steady rhythm of Cade's breathing. Just before sleep claimed her, she could have sworn she felt his fingers brush through her hair, tender, protective, achingly gentle. But when she woke in the deep of night, Cade was standing at the clearing's edge, his silhouette tense against the darkness, keeping watch like he'd promised. They fell into a rhythm over the next 3 days. Ride until midday, rest the horses, ride until dark. Make camp, eat whatever Cade produced from his seemingly endless supply of provisions, then sleep in shifts even though Amelia suspected he barely rested during his turns. Amelia found herself sharing things she'd never told anyone, her fear of being forgotten like her parents, her dreams for the vineyard, the way her grandmother used to sing old ballads while working the vines, the memory of her mother's laugh, fading despite her desperate attempts to hold on to it. Cade listened with an intensity that made her feel truly seen, like she didn't have to edit herself or hide the complicated parts. And slowly, carefully, he shared pieces of himself in return. I wasn't always alone, he said one night, staring into the fire. I had family once, people I loved, But power has a cost, and sometimes that cost is the ability to trust anyone completely. That sounds lonely. It is. His eyes found hers. Or it was. Before. Before what? You're reminding me what it feels like to be human, not just a weapon or a tool. Amelia's breath caught. Cade, you asked earlier why I took your contract. He leaned forward, firelight dancing across his features. This is why. Something in me recognized something in you, and I couldn't walk away even if I'd wanted to. You don't know me well enough for that, don't I? His voice dropped lower. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous. I know you check on the horses before you check on yourself. I know you dream about your grandmother and wake up crying, but you never make a sound because you don't want to burden anyone with your grief. He paused. I know you're terrified of what's waiting in Silvermere, but you're riding toward it anyway, because you refuse to let fear win. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs. How do you know all that? I pay attention. He reached across the space between them, his hand hovering near hers. Because you matter. She should pull away. Remember he was hired protection, nothing more. Remember that whatever this was building between them would end the moment they reached Silvermere. But her body had different ideas. She wanted his touch, craved the warmth of his hand in hers, even if it would hurt later. So she closed the distance, threading her fingers through his. The contact sent electricity racing up her arm, sharp, immediate, like touching lightning. Cade inhaled sharply, his grip tightening, and something flickered across his expression. Hunger. Need. And beneath it, something almost like pain. What was that? She breathed. Nothing. But his voice was strained, and his amber eyes flashed brighter. You're lying again. Yes. Tell me why. Cade's jaw worked, clearly wrestling with the truth. Finally, he said, because if I tell you the truth, everything changes. And I'm not sure you're ready for that change. Try me, Cade. He studied her face for a long moment, then shook his head. Not yet. Ask me again when we reach Silvermere, when this job is done and you have the freedom to walk away if you choose. Why would I need to walk away? Because what I really am, comes with complications you can't begin to imagine, and I won't trap you before you've had a chance to decide what you want. The conviction in his voice made her chest ache. You keep talking about freedom, like you expect me to run. I hope you don't. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the gesture achingly tender. But I need you to have the option. They sat like that, hands intertwined, the fire burning low between them. And despite the danger lurking in the shadows, despite the unanswered questions and the uncertain future, Amelia felt safe. Not because Cade was strong, though he was. Not because he was skilled, though he'd proven that beyond doubt. But because when he looked at her, she saw herself reflected in his eyes as something precious. Something worth protecting, not for what she could do or what she represented, but simply for who she was. And that, she was beginning to realize, was rarer than gold. On the 5th day, they reached the edge of Silvermere's territory. The landscape had shifted, the wild forest giving way to cultivated fields and neat rows of grapevines marching across rolling hills. In the distance, Amelia could see the town itself, small and prosperous, smoke rising from chimneys in the afternoon light. There, she said, pointing to a cluster of buildings nestled in the valley. That's my grandmother's estate, the main house, the cellars, the pressing house. Her voice trailed off as they drew closer. Something was wrong. The vines were overgrown, unpruned. The main house's shutters hung at odd angles, and several windows were broken. The whole place had an air of abandonment that made her stomach clench. "This doesn't make sense," she said, dismounting before Cade could stop her. "My grandmother had workers, people who maintained the estate. It shouldn't look like this." Cade's hand found his sword hilt. "Stay close to me." They approached the main house carefully, Cade moving with predatory caution. The front door stood ajar, creaking in the breeze. Inside, chaos. Furniture overturned, papers scattered across the floor, drawers pulled out and emptied. Someone had searched the place, thoroughly, destructively, desperately. "They were looking for something," Amelia whispered, her heart sinking as she surveyed the wreckage. This had been her grandmother's sanctuary, the place filled with warmth and laughter and the smell of baking bread. Now it looked violated. Cade knelt, examining scuff marks on the floor. "Recent. Within the last week. I'm betting this is why someone wanted you dead, before you got here. They searched the estate, didn't find what they were looking for, and worried you might know where it is. But I don't know anything." Frustration bled into her voice. "I don't even know what they're looking for." "Then let's figure it out." Cade began moving through the room systematically. "Where would your grandmother keep important documents? Sensitive information?" Amelia thought. "Her study. Upstairs. Second door on the right." They climbed the stairs, avoiding broken boards and scattered belongings. The study was in even worse shape than the main floor. Books torn from shelves, the desk drawers smashed, even the floorboards pried up in places. But in the corner, beneath an overturned chair, Amelia spotted something that made her breath catch. A loose stone in the fireplace, the same one where she'd hidden her childhood treasures, thinking no one knew about it. She crossed the room, pulled the stone free, and found a leather-bound journal inside. "Cade." He was beside her instantly. "What is it?" "My grandmother's personal records." Amelia flipped through pages filled with her grandmother's distinctive handwriting, dates, names, observations, and as she read, the pieces began to fall into place. "She was tracking property sales," Amelia said slowly. "Families who sold their land suddenly, often for far less than it was worth. And look, many of them had daughters or wives who'd recently disappeared." Cade leaned over her shoulder, his breath warm against her neck. "Someone's been using the disappearances to force land sales." "Lord Drescher." Amelia pointed to a name that appeared repeatedly. "He's Silvermere's magistrate. According to this, he's been buying up property throughout the region for pennies on the pound. Families desperate after losing loved ones, willing to sell for any price just to escape the memories." "And your grandmother figured it out." "I think she was building a case against him." Amelia's hands shook as she turned another page. "Look, witness statements, property records, letters from families begging for help. She had everything needed to prove Drescher was behind the disappearances." Cade had gone very still beside her. "What was the date of her last entry?" Amelia checked. 6 weeks ago, the day before she..." Her voice broke. "They killed her. And then they came looking for this journal, hoping to destroy the evidence." Cade's voice was soft but deadly. "But they didn't account for you knowing about the hiding spot." Amelia's grief sharpened into cold fury. Her grandmother, brilliant, fierce, uncompromising, murdered for asking questions, for doing what she'd always done, fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. "I want him to pay," she said. "Drescher, I want him to face justice for what he's done." "He will." Cade's hand covered hers where it rested on the journal. "I promise you, Amelia, he'll answer for all of it." A sound from downstairs made them both freeze. Footsteps, multiple sets. Cade moved instantly, positioning himself between Amelia and the door. "Hide," he whispered. "The wardrobe now." "I'm not leaving. You have the journal. That's what matters." His eyes blazed. "If something happens to me, you run. You take that evidence straight to the Capitol, and you don't stop until you've delivered it to the High Court." "Cade, please." The single word held such desperate intensity that it stopped her protests. "Please, Amelia. I can't protect you and fight them at the same time. I need to know you're safe." She wanted to stand beside him, face whatever was coming together. But the look in his eyes, terrified and determined in equal measure, made her nod. She slipped into the wardrobe, pulling the doors almost closed, the journal clutched to her chest. Through the narrow gap, she watched Cade position himself near the study door, his sword drawn, every line of his body coiled and ready. The footsteps grew closer. Then voices. "Search upstairs. He said she'd come here eventually." Drescher's men. 3 of them entered the study, armed and alert. They fanned out, searching methodically, getting closer to the wardrobe with every passing second. Amelia held her breath, pressing back into the darkness. One of the men reached for the wardrobe door. Cade moved. He hit the first man from behind, a blow to the base of the skull that dropped him instantly. The second spun, weapon rising, but Cade was already there, blade finding the soft flesh beneath the man's ribs. The third managed to draw his sword, bringing it around in a wide arc. Cade blocked, the clash of steel ringing through the room, then countered with a series of strikes so fast Amelia could barely track them. But this man was noticeably better trained than the bandits. He matched Cade blow for blow, driving him back toward the window. That's when Amelia saw it. A fourth man, creeping up the stairs, crossbow raised and aimed at Cade's unprotected back. Her blood went cold. She didn't think. She burst from the wardrobe, her grandmother's knife in her hand, and threw it with all the strength her grandmother had taught her to summon. The blade caught the crossbowman in the shoulder. Not a killing throw, but enough to ruin his aim. The arrow went wide, shattering the window instead of embedding itself in Cade's spine. Cade whirled, taking in the scene in a heartbeat. Then something shifted in his expression, something primal and ancient, and he moved faster than any man should be able to move. His form blurred. For just a second, Amelia could have sworn she saw something else overlaid on his human shape, something massive and furred and terrifying. Then he was Cade again, but the third swordsman was down, unconscious, and the crossbowman was backing away, eyes wide with recognition and terror. "It's you," the man breathed. "You're the—" Cade's hand closed around his throat. "Tell Drescher that if he wants the journal, he'll have to face me himself, and tell him I know about Megan." The name cut through everything else. Megan. That must be who Cade had been searching for all this time. Was she his girlfriend? The thought twisted something in her chest, sharp and unexpected. The crossbowman nodded frantically, and Cade shoved him back before releasing him. The man fled, clattering down the stairs and out into the fading daylight. Silence settled over the study, broken only by their ragged breathing. Cade turned to Amelia, and she saw fear in his eyes, raw, unguarded fear that had nothing to do with the fight, and everything to do with what she'd just witnessed. "Amelia, what are you?" Her voice shook. He flinched like she'd struck him. "I told you, I'm someone who keeps his promises." "That's not a real answer." "I know." He took a careful step toward her, hands raised like she was a spooked horse. "And I'll explain everything. But first we need to leave. Drescher knows we're here now, and he'll come with more men." "Not until you tell me the truth." Amelia held her ground despite the fear racing through her veins. "What did I just see? What are you really?" Cade's jaw worked. Then slowly he said, I'm a shifter, wolf-born, and the person I've been searching for, Megan, she's my sister. Drescher took her 2 years ago when she started investigating the disappearances. I've been hunting him ever since. The words hung in the air between them. Shifter. The word conjured images from childhood stories, creatures of myth and power, neither fully human nor beast, dangerous, unpredictable. And the rest? Amelia's voice came out steadier than she felt. Your real name? Your real identity? Something that looked like resignation crossed his face. My name is Archer. I'm the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, and the moment Drescher realizes who I am, he'll either run or try to use Megan against me. Either way, we're running out of time. Alpha King. The room tilted sideways. Amelia grabbed the desk for support, her mind struggling to reconcile the man who'd touched her so gently with the most powerful ruler in the Northern Realms. You lied to me, she said. This whole time, you've been lying. About my identity. Archer's voice roughened. But not about anything else. Not about wanting to help you. Not about finding you worth protecting. And not about... He stopped himself. Not about what? Not about what I feel when I look at you. The admission seemed torn from somewhere deep. That's been real from the moment we met, Amelia. More real than anything I've felt in years. She wanted to believe him, but she'd spent the last week sharing her fears, her dreams, her grief, being vulnerable in ways she'd never allowed herself to be. And he'd let her, knowing she'd never have opened up like that if she'd known she was talking to a king. I told you everything. Her throat tightened around the words. Every fear, every hope, every piece of myself I keep hidden, and you just took it, knowing I'd never have trusted you if I'd known the truth. She blinked hard, refusing to let the sting behind her eyes become anything more. Archer's expression cracked. Amelia, I'm more sorry for that than you can imagine. But I wanted you to know me as I am, not as what I represent. I needed... His voice broke. I needed to be just Cade with you. Just a man, not a crown. But you're not just a man. You're a king. A laugh escaped her, shaky and almost incredulous. And I'm a vintner's granddaughter. We don't fit, Archer. We never did. We fit perfectly. The words came out fierce. I've never been more certain of anything. How can you say that? You don't even know if what you feel is real or if it's just... It's real. He closed the distance between them, his hands framing her face with desperate gentleness. I know it's real because it's been killing me not to tell you. Because every moment with you has felt like coming home after years of being lost. Because you're my... He stopped himself again, but Amelia saw it in his eyes. Whatever he'd been about to say, it was something massive, something that would change everything. I'm your what? She whispered. Archer's hands trembled against her face. After this is done, after Drescher is dealt with and Megan is safe, I'll tell you everything. But right now, I need you to trust me one more time, just long enough to get you somewhere safe. Amelia was about to push for more answers, but footsteps thundered from downstairs again, more of them this time coming fast. And Archer's eyes held such desperate pleading that she found herself nodding. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the window. Can you climb? Yes. Good. There's a trellis outside. Get to the stables, take the gray mare, and ride for the ridge to the north. There's an abandoned shepherd's hut about 3 miles out. Wait for me there. What about you? I'll hold them off, then follow. Archer, go. He kissed her forehead, quick and desperate. Please, Amelia, let me protect you. She scrambled out the window, finding purchase on the trellis, ignoring the way her hands shook and her heart raced. Behind her, she heard the clash of steel, Archer's voice raised in challenge. Then she was on the ground, running for the stables, the journal still clutched against her chest. The gray mare nickered softly as Amelia fumbled with the saddle. Her hands shook so badly she could barely manage the straps, but finally she got the horse ready and swung into the saddle. As she urged the mare into a gallop, heading for the northern ridge, Amelia glanced back once. The estate was swarming with men now, torches lit against the gathering dusk, and somewhere in that chaos was Archer, fighting alone, buying her time to escape. She wanted to turn back and help him, but she'd promised. And she had the journal, the evidence that could bring Drescher down. So she rode hard into the darkening forest, trusting that Archer would follow, trusting that she hadn't just left him to die. The shepherd's hut was exactly where Archer had said, a small stone structure half hidden by overgrown brush, its roof sagging but intact. Amelia dismounted, led the mare inside, then barricaded the door with a fallen beam. Then she waited. Minutes stretched into hours. The moon rose, full and bright, painting the forest in silver. Amelia paced the small space, the journal on the rough wooden table, her mind spinning. Archer was the Alpha King, the man who'd touched her so gently, who'd listened to her stories with such focus, who'd looked at her like she was something precious. He was the most powerful shifter in the northern realms, and he'd been lying to her the entire time. Except, had he? Amelia forced herself to think past the hurt. Yes, he'd hidden his identity, but everything else, the protectiveness, the gentleness, the way he'd shared his grief about losing someone he loved, that had been real. She'd felt it in every word, every touch. A sound outside made her freeze. Footsteps, heavy, limping. Amelia grabbed a piece of broken wood and flattened herself behind the door, pulse hammering in her ears. Amelia? Archer's voice, rough and pained. It's me. Don't stab me. She dropped the wood and wrenched the door open. He stood in the moonlight, blood staining his shirt, his left arm hanging at an odd angle, but alive, barely whole. You're hurt, she said, reaching for him. I'm fine. He swayed slightly, and she caught his weight, helping him inside. You're not fine. Sit down before you fall down. He sank onto the rough bench, and Amelia got her first good look at the damage. Deep cuts across his ribs, bruising already blooming along his jaw, and his left shoulder was definitely dislocated. How bad is it? She asked, already tearing strips from her spare shirt to make bandages. I've had worse. That's not reassuring. I heal fast. At her look, he added, Shifter, thing. By morning, most of this will be gone. Amelia cleaned the worst of the cuts, trying not to wince at the extent of the damage. How many were there? 15, maybe 20? He sucked in a breath as she pressed cloth against a particularly deep gash. I wasn't counting. And you fought them all? I mostly ran, actually. Led them away from your trail, then lost them in the forest. His good hand caught hers. You made it here safely? Obviously. She met his eyes. You should have told me, Archer, about what you are, about who you are. I know. I would have understood. Would you? His expression was raw. Because I've spent my whole life watching people change the moment they learn what I am. They either fear me or want to use me. And you, his voice broke. You saw me. Not the crown, not the power, just Cade. And I was selfish enough to want that for as long as I could have it. Amelia's throat tightened. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. I'm dangerous. Amelia, I'm violent and damaged, and I've done things that would make you run if you knew the details. Like what? Protecting people? Searching for your sister? Fighting men who traffic women? She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. Those aren't things that make me want to run. They're things that make me... She stopped herself, the words too big, too soon. But Archer heard what she hadn't said. Make you what? Trust you, she finished, though they both knew it wasn't the whole truth. Despite everything, I trust you. His eyes closed, and she saw him shaking. You shouldn't. Too late. Archer's laugh was broken. Amelia, your shoulder needs to be reset, she said, changing the subject before she said something she couldn't take back. I've done it before, but it's going to hurt. Can't be worse than leaving it like this. She positioned herself carefully, remembering her grandmother's instructions from the time a field hand had taken a fall. On 3. 1, she popped the joint back into place on 1, and Archer bit back a shout, his good hand gripping her thigh hard enough to bruise. Sorry, she said. You would have tensed on 3. Devious. But there was approval in his voice. I learned from the best. She finished bandaging him, then sat back. What happens now? Now we rest. In the morning, we use that journal to take Drescher down. How? We can't exactly walk up to his estate and demand he release Megan. No, but we can force his hand. Archer's expression hardened. I sent word to my people before I left the vineyard. By morning, this forest will be surrounded by my warriors. Drescher will have 2 choices: surrender Megan and face trial, or try to run and face me. And if he chooses to run, then I'll hunt him down. The words were simple, absolute. He took my sister. He's responsible for dozens of disappearances, and he killed your grandmother. Archer's eyes met hers. He doesn't get to walk away from that. Amelia thought about her grandmother, fierce, brilliant, dead before her time. Thought about Megan, held captive for 2 years. Thought about all the other women who'd vanished, leaving broken families behind. I want to be there, she said. When you confront him, I want him to see what his greed cost. It's too dangerous. I don't care. Archer studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, we face him together. They sat in silence, the moonlight streaming through gaps in the roof. Amelia was exhausted, her body aching from the long ride and the fear and the emotional whiplash of the last few hours. But she couldn't sleep. Not yet. Tell me about Megan, she said quietly. Archer's expression softened. She's brilliant, stubborn, has a terrible sense of humor and an even worse sense of self-preservation. He smiled despite the pain it clearly caused. She was 19 when she disappeared, barely an adult, but already so certain she could change the world. She sounds like someone I'd like. You would. You're alike in some ways. That fierce determination to do what's right even when it's hard. His hand found hers again. She was investigating the disappearances on her own. I told her to let my trackers handle it, that it was too dangerous, but she didn't listen. And then one day she was just gone. No trace, no trail, like she'd never existed. That must have been unbearable. It broke something in me, Archer admitted. I'm a king. I command armies. I've fought wars. I've executed men for treason. But I couldn't protect my baby sister. Couldn't even find out what happened to her. For 2 years, I've been searching, following dead ends, chasing shadows. He looked at her. And then I met you, and you led me straight to the answer. The journal? Your grandmother's documentation proves Drescher was behind it all. And if he took other women who asked questions? Archer's voice hardened. Then he has Megan. Amelia squeezed his hand. We'll get her back. I hope so, because I can't. His voice broke. I can't lose her. She's all I have left of my family. You won't lose her. You're too stubborn to fail. He laughed despite himself. Is that your professional opinion? It's my observation after 5 days of watching you refuse to quit. Archer's thumb traced circles on her palm, that same achingly gentle gesture that always made her breath catch. I would have given up, if not for you. That's not true. It is. When I'm with you, I remember what it's like to want something other than vengeance, to think about tomorrow instead of yesterday. He paused. You gave me something to protect, something worth... He stopped himself again, but this time Amelia pushed. Worth what? Archer lifted his gaze to hers. His amber eyes were darker now, and the look in them made her breath catch. Hunger, raw and barely leashed. His jaw clenched tight, like he was holding something back by sheer force of will. You're my mate. The words hung in the air between them. It's a shifter thing, a bond that forms between two people. Recognition on a level deeper than choice or logic. His grip on her hand tightened. The moment we touched that first day, when you hired me, I felt it snap into place, like my entire existence had been building toward that single moment of contact. Amelia's mind reeled. But I'm not a shifter. How can I be your mate? Bonds don't discriminate. They just are. Archer's expression was raw, vulnerable. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on finding Megan, on keeping you safe, on anything but the fact that every cell in my body was screaming that you belong to me and I belong to you. Is that why you kept pulling away when we touched? Yes, because I could feel the bond strengthening with every moment we spent together, and I knew that if it completed, I'd never be able to let you go. And you deserve better than being trapped by magic you don't understand with a man you barely know. Amelia's heart was racing. What if I don't want better? Archer went very still. She could see the struggle in him, the way his hands curled into fists, the tension coiling through his shoulders. His eyes dropped to her mouth before snapping back up. Don't say that unless you mean it, Amelia. I do mean it. She shifted closer until she could feel his warmth. I don't understand this bond you're talking about, and I'm still hurt that you lied. But Archer, her voice softened. I felt something since that first day too, like I'd been waiting my whole life for someone to see me the way you do. Amelia, I'm not done. She cupped his face, careful of the bruising along his jaw. I know we're from different worlds. I know this is complicated and messy and probably impossible. But when I left you tonight, I couldn't stop thinking about all the ways you could get hurt, all the ways I might never see you again. That has to mean something. Archer's control finally shattered. He kissed her like a man starving, like he'd been dying for this and could finally breathe. His good arm banded around her waist, hauling her into his lap, and she went willingly, eagerly, her fingers diving into his hair as she kissed him back just as desperately. Heat flooded through her. His mouth was hungry, demanding, and when his tongue swept against hers, she made a sound she'd never made before. Her body fitted against his like it belonged there, and everywhere they touched felt electric. That same spark from their first contact, but now it was everywhere, burning through her until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. The bond, she realized. This was the bond Archer had been fighting. It felt like coming home and catching fire all at once. When they finally broke apart, Archer whispered against her lips. This changes everything. If Drescher finds out you're my mate, he'll use you against me. Then we don't tell him. We're already in this together, she said firmly. Bond or no bond, I'm not walking away now. Not when we're this close to saving Megan and bringing Drescher to justice. Archer's laugh was broken. You're going to be the death of me. Probably. She kissed him again, softer this time. But what a way to go, right? They held each other as the moon tracked across the sky, trading kisses and whispered confessions. Archer told her about his parents' deaths, about the weight of the crown he'd never wanted. Amelia shared memories of her grandmother, the vineyard, the dreams she'd built in quiet moments. And slowly, the pieces of themselves they'd been protecting began to weave together into something stronger than either of them alone. Just before dawn, Amelia finally slept, curled against Archer's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, his arms wrapped around her like he'd never let go. He was so warm, almost feverishly hot, that shifter heat seeping into her bones and chasing away the last of the cold fear. For the first time since her grandmother died, she felt home. And for the first time in 2 years, Archer felt hope. They woke to the sound of horses. Archer was on his feet instantly, his injuries already healing into pink scars. My warriors, he said, relief evident in his voice. Amelia followed him outside to find the forest filled with mounted fighters, men and women in dark leathers, their faces marked with the tattoos of the Northern Territories. At their head rode a woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes like flint. Commander Vale, Archer said, clasping her arm in greeting. Your Majesty. Vale's gaze flicked to Amelia, assessing and sharp. This is her? Yes. Amelia, this is Commander Vale. She leads my personal guard. Vale inclined her head. We have Drescher's estate surrounded. He's trapped, but he's also barricaded himself inside with at least 30 men. And Megan? The desperate hope in Archer's voice made Amelia's chest ache. We've confirmed she's inside. One of our scouts saw her in a window on the eastern wing. Vale's expression gentled slightly. She appears unharmed, Archer. He closed his eyes, his whole body sagging with relief. What's the plan? Amelia asked. Vale's attention shifted to her, reassessing. Direct assault would risk civilian casualties. We were hoping to negotiate, but Drescher won't even speak with us. He'll speak with me, Amelia said. Both Archer and Vale turned to stare. No, Archer said immediately. Absolutely not. He wants my grandmother's journal. That's what he's been searching for, proof of his crimes. Amelia pulled the leather-bound book from her pack. We offer him a trade, the journal for Megan. He'll kill you the moment he has it. Not if you're watching, not if your warriors are ready to move and the second Megan is clear. She met Archer's eyes. You said we face him together. Let me do this. Archer looked like he wanted to argue, to lock her away, somewhere safe and handle Drescher himself, but something in her expression must have convinced him, because he finally nodded. We do it my way, he said. You go in with Vale and 10 warriors. I'll be positioned with archers overlooking the courtyard. The moment anything goes wrong, you'll intervene, I know. Amelia touched his face. Trust me, Archer. I do. It's Drescher I don't trust. Vale cleared her throat. If we're doing this, we should move. Drescher's getting nervous, and nervous men make unpredictable decisions. They rode for Drescher's estate, Amelia on the gray mare, surrounded by warriors who moved with the kind of precision that came from years of training. Archer rode apart, his expression locked in that iron control she'd come to recognize as his way of managing fear. The estate was massive, a sprawling manor house surrounded by manicured gardens and high walls. Guards lined the battlements, crossbows trained on the approaching group. Vale called for a discussion, and after a tense moment, Drescher himself appeared on the balcony. He was older than Amelia expected, gray-haired and distinguished, with the kind of face that probably inspired trust in most people. The perfect disguise for a monster. "Commander Vale," he called down, "to what do I owe this military visit?" "Lord Drescher, we're here for Megan. Release her, surrender yourself for trial, and no one else needs to die." Drescher laughed. "Trial? On what charges?" "Kidnapping, trafficking, murder." Vale's voice was steel. "We have evidence of all of it." "Evidence?" Drescher's gaze swept across the assembled warriors, then landed on Amelia. His eyes narrowed with recognition. "Ah, the vintner's granddaughter. I heard you'd survived the roads. What a shame." Rage flooded through Amelia, but she kept her voice steady. "I have my grandmother's journal, all her documentation of your crimes, the property sales, the disappearances, the families you destroyed, everything." Drescher's expression flickered. "That journal is mine. Your grandmother stole it when she fled." "My grandmother built the case that will hang you," Amelia corrected. "But I'll make you a deal. The journal for Megan. A clean trade." "And what makes you think I'd honor such a trade?" "Because you're surrounded by the Alpha King's warriors, and your only chance of escaping with your life is to cooperate." Amelia pulled the journal from her pack, held it up. "You get what you want, we get Megan. Everyone walks away." Drescher was silent for a long moment, clearly calculating odds. Then he smiled, cold and sinister. "Very well. Send the girl up alone with the journal. Once I've verified its contents, I'll release Megan." "No," Archer's voice rang out. He'd dismounted, moving to stand beside Amelia. "We trade in the courtyard. Neutral ground." Drescher's eyes widened as he recognized Archer. "Your Majesty, I didn't realize you were personally handling such minor matters." "There's nothing minor about my sister's kidnapping." Archer's voice could have cut glass. "The courtyard, Drescher, or I bring down your walls and drag you out myself." The threat hung in the air. Finally, Drescher nodded. "The courtyard. In 10 minutes." They withdrew to prepare, and Archer pulled Amelia aside. "When he brings Megan out, you grab her and run. Don't look back, don't hesitate. Just get her to safety." "What about you?" "I'll handle Drescher." His hands framed her face. "Promise me you'll run." "Archer, promise me, Amelia. Please." She saw the fear beneath his control, the terror of losing both his sister and his mate in one moment. "I promise." He kissed her hard, desperately, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. Then he pulled back, his eyes blazing. "No matter what happens, Amelia, I love you. I need you to know that." Amelia's breath caught. "Archer, I know it's too soon, but I've loved you since that first moment in the mercenary hall when you lifted your chin and refused to be afraid." His thumb brushed her cheek. "You're everything I didn't know I needed, and I will move heaven and earth to keep you safe." Tears burned behind her eyes. "I love you too, which is why you'd better not do anything stupid in there." He gave her a big smile, sharp shifter teeth flashing in a way that should have been reassuring, but something in his eyes made it look like farewell. Fear clenched tight in her chest. Vale's voice cut through the moment. "It's time." They entered the courtyard together, Archer and Amelia flanked by warriors, while Drescher emerged from the manor with Megan. Amelia's breath caught. Megan was thin, pale, but her eyes burned with the same fierce intelligence Archer possessed. She moved with her head high despite the guard gripping her arm, And when she saw her brother, relief and love crashed across her expression. "Archer," she breathed. "I'm here," he said, his voice rough. "I've got you." Drescher pushed Megan forward. "The journal first." Amelia stepped into the open space between the two groups, the leather-bound book in her hands. This was the moment, the culmination of everything her grandmother had worked for, everything Archer had sacrificed. She could feel the bond humming between her and Archer, a golden thread connecting them across the courtyard. Could feel his fear, his love, his desperate hope that this would work. "Here," she said, offering the journal to Drescher. He snatched it, flipping through pages with greedy fingers, and as he read, his expression shifted from triumph to rage. "This is a copy," he hissed. "Yes, congratulations on your observational skills." Amelia smiled. "The original is already on its way to the High Court, along with witness testimonies and signed statements from families you terrorized. This was just bait, and you bit." Drescher's face went purple. "You stupid girl." Everything happened at once. Drescher lunged for Amelia, a knife appearing in his hand. Archer moved faster, shifting mid-stride into a massive wolf with silver-tipped fur and eyes like molten gold. He hit Drescher with the force of an avalanche, driving him back. Vale and her warriors surged forward, and chaos erupted. Amelia ran for Megan, grabbing the younger woman's hand. "Come on!" They sprinted for the courtyard's edge, dodging fighters and falling men. Behind them, Amelia heard the snarls and screams of battle, but she forced herself not to look back. She'd promised Archer. They made it to the wall, where more warriors waited to help them over. Safe. They were safe. With dread in her heart, Amelia finally turned back. The courtyard was a battlefield. Drescher's men were falling to Archer's warriors, but Drescher himself had produced a crossbow, and it was aimed directly at Archer's massive wolf form. "No!" Amelia screamed. The bolt flew. Archer twisted, but he was too large, too close. The bolt buried itself in his shoulder with a sickening thunk, and he went down hard. The sound he made, half howl, half whimper, was so painfully human it shattered something in Amelia's chest. He tried to rise, legs shaking, but collapsed again. Drescher was already loading another bolt, his expression twisted with hate. 2 years I kept your sister alive, and you repay me with this? I'll kill you both." The world narrowed to a single point. Archer bleeding in the dirt, and Drescher raising that crossbow again. Amelia grabbed a fallen sword. The weight was wrong, unfamiliar, but her hands knew what to do. She charged. Drescher turned, surprise flashing across his face. Too late. Her blade caught him across the chest, not deep enough to kill, but enough to send him reeling backward. The crossbow flew from his hands, clattering uselessly across the stones. Vale was there in an instant, sword point at Drescher's throat before he could recover. "Yield." Drescher sagged to his knees, blood spreading across his shirt, defeat written in every line of his body. But Amelia was already running to Archer. He'd shifted back to human form, blood streaming from his shoulder, his face pale with pain and blood loss. His breathing came in short, ragged gasps. She dropped to her knees beside him, hands hovering over the wound, afraid to touch, afraid not to. "You're hurt." "I'm okay." He caught her hand before she could pull away, pressed it against his chest where his heart hammered wild and strong. "I'm here. Feel that? I'm here." The steadiness in his voice nearly undid her. "Archer?" Megan's voice cut through, tentative, disbelieving, broken with hope. Archer's head lifted. His whole body went still. Then something in his expression shattered completely. "Meg." She flew into his arms, and he caught her despite the wound, despite everything. Both of them were crying, harsh sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded. 2 years of grief and terror and desperate fading hope finally breaking free. Amelia stepped back, giving them space, and felt Vale's hand on her shoulder. "Well fought," the commander said quietly. "I had good teachers." Amelia watched Archer and Megan, saw them whispering to each other in voices too low to hear. "Is he really all right?" "He'll heal. Shifters are resilient." Vale paused. "And he'll have you to help him. The mate bond is powerful medicine." "You know about that?" "I've known Archer since he was a child. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Vale's expression softened. "He chose well." Amelia's throat tightened. I'm just a vintner's granddaughter." "You're the woman who charged an armed man to save her mate. You're the woman who solved a 2-year mystery and brought down a trafficking ring. I think you're more than meets the eye." Vale squeezed her shoulder. "You're exactly what he needs, and what this kingdom needs." Before Amelia could respond, Archer was there, Megan at his side, both of them battered but whole. "We need to get you both to healers," Vale said. "And we need to get Drescher to a secure location before his allies try anything stupid." "Agreed." Archer's arm slid around Amelia's waist, pulling her close. "But first," he looked at his sister. "Meg, there's someone I want you to meet." Megan's eyes were red from crying, but her smile was genuine. "The woman who helped you find me, Amelia, right?" "Yes." Amelia extended her hand, but Megan pulled her into a fierce hug instead. "Thank you," Megan whispered, "for everything." The ride back to the capital took 3 days. Archer and Megan spent most of it talking, catching up on 2 years of lost time. Amelia rode beside them, content to listen, watching the siblings rebuild their bond one story at a time. Megan was everything Archer had described: brilliant, stubborn, with a wicked sense of humor that frequently made Amelia laugh. And despite her ordeal, there was a core of steel in her that hadn't been broken. "Drescher kept me alive because he thought he could use me," Megan explained, around the campfire on their second night. "He wanted to force Archer into a political marriage, his son to me, binding our families. But I kept refusing, kept causing problems, so he just kept me locked up." "I'm sorry," Amelia said quietly. "Don't be. I survived, and I kept records, names, dates, everything I could learn about his operation." Megan's expression hardened. "He's not the only one involved. There are others, and we're going to find them all." Archer and Amelia exchanged glances. "You should rest," Archer said. "Recover. You don't need to jump back into—" "Yes, I do." Megan's eyes blazed. "I've been helpless for 2 years, Archer. I need to do something. Help bring down the rest of the network, give those families closure." "It's dangerous," Amelia said. "So is walking across your courtyard unarmed." Megan grinned. "Besides, I'll have the best protection, my brother and his terrifying mate." Amelia blushed. We haven't—" "Oh, please. The bond is so obvious I'm surprised the horses haven't commented." Megan's expression softened. "I'm happy for you, Archer. You deserve this." Archer's hand found Amelia's beneath the blanket they shared. "So do you, Meg. Happiness, peace, whatever you need." "Right now, I need justice." Megan stood. "But first, I need sleep. We'll talk more tomorrow." She retreated to her tent, leaving Archer and Amelia alone by the fire. "She's amazing," Amelia said. "She's a menace." But Archer's voice was full of love. "I can't believe I have her back." "Because you never gave up. Because of you." He pulled Amelia into his lap, wrapping his arms around her. You gave me hope when I had none left. You led me to the answers I'd been searching for. You charged Drescher to save me. If you say perfect, I'm going to elbow you in the ribs. He laughed. I was going to say extraordinary, but perfect works too. Amelia settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. What happens when we reach the capital? I have to deal with Drescher's trial, root out his co-conspirators, manage the political fallout. Archer's arms tightened. And I need to figure out how to convince you to stay. Stay? With me, in the capital, as my... He paused. I want to court you properly, Amelia. Give you time to decide if this is really what you want. Let's see where this goes. What about my grandmother's vineyard? We'll rebuild it. Hire new workers, restore the vines. It's your inheritance, your legacy. I'd never ask you to give that up. Amelia turned to face him. And what about being your mate? What does that mean, long term? Archer's expression grew serious. It means, if you choose to complete the bond, we're bound for life. Partners in every sense, emotionally, physically, spiritually. It's not something to enter into lightly. But you've already decided you want it? Yes. The moment we touched, I knew. He gave her a rueful look. My wolf doesn't exactly do subtlety. We mate for life. It's instinct, not choice. The bond just is. His jaw tightened. But you're not a wolf. You deserve to choose this, not have it forced on you by some biological imperative you never asked for. So I need you to be sure, Amelia, to choose this. Choose me, with full knowledge of what it means. She thought about the past week, the danger, the revelations, the way Archer had protected her while trusting her strength, the way he looked at her like her happiness mattered more than his own breath. That single-minded devotion he'd described, it wasn't just words. She'd seen it in every choice he made, every time he'd put her safety above his own, every touch that said, "You're mine, and I'm yours, and nothing will ever change that." It was overwhelming, all-consuming, intoxicating. She always wanted to be loved like that, completely, permanently, with a certainty that didn't waver. I'm not sure about being a queen, she said honestly. I'm not sure I'm ready for court politics and formal dinners and all the things that come with your title. But I'm sure about you. About this. She touched his face. So court me. Show me your world. Give me time to figure out how I fit into it. And then we'll talk about forever. Archer's smile was brilliant, all sharp teeth and wild joy. Those canines that had once seemed dangerous now just looked enticing. Her mind flickered to what those teeth might feel like against her throat, her shoulder, and heat bloomed low in her belly. His eyes darkened like he could read every thought crossing her face. I can work with that. He kissed her then, slow and deep, pouring everything he felt into it. The bond hummed between them, not complete yet, but growing stronger with every moment they spent together. And Amelia found herself hoping that when the time came to decide, she'd have the courage to say yes, to choose this impossible, beautiful, terrifying love. The capital city rose from the plains like a crown of stone and steel, massive walls, soaring towers, streets that burst with life and color. Amelia stared as they rode through the gates, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it all. It's a lot, Archer said quietly, reading her expression. But you'll adjust. Will I? Yes. You're one of the bravest people I know. He guided his horse closer. And I'll be with you every step. They rode through streets lined with curious onlookers, people who'd heard rumors of their king's return with his rescued sister and mysterious companion. Amelia felt their gazes like physical weight, and she lifted her chin the way her grandmother had taught her. She would not be cowed. Not today. The palace was even more overwhelming than the city, all marble and gold, with courtyards filled with fountains and gardens that defied the northern climate. Servants rushed to greet them, and Amelia watched Archer transform from the man she knew into the king his people needed. But even as he gave orders and received reports, his hand never left hers. "I need to meet with my council," he said after the initial rush settled. "Brief them on Drescher, coordinate the trials. It'll take hours." "I'll wait." He turned to Megan. "Show her the palace? Help her get settled?" Megan grinned. "With pleasure. I've been dying to interrogate her properly anyway." Archer kissed Amelia's forehead. "I'll find you when I'm done. We'll have dinner together, just us." He left, and Megan immediately linked arms with Amelia. "Come on, I'll show you your rooms." "My rooms?" "Archer had them prepared before we even left Silvermere. You should see them. They overlook the gardens, and the bathing room is absolutely obscene." She wasn't wrong. The suite was larger than Amelia's entire cottage had been, all rich fabrics and carved wood, with windows that let in afternoon light and a bed piled so high with furs and pillows it looked like a cloud. "This is too much," Amelia said. "This is Archer being practical. He knows you'll be staying here, either in these rooms or eventually in his, so why not make you comfortable?" Megan flopped onto a chaise. "Now, tell me everything. How did you two meet? When did you realize he was your mate? Have you completed the bond yet?" Megan. "What?" "I've been locked in a manor for 2 years. I need details." Amelia laughed despite her embarrassment. "We met when I hired him to escort me to Silvermere." "You hired the Alpha King as a bodyguard. That's amazing." "I didn't know who he was." "Even better." Megan's eyes sparkled. "Tell me more." So Amelia did. The attacks, the growing attraction, the moment she'd learned the truth. Megan listened raptly, occasionally interrupting with questions or delighted laughter. "You charged Drescher with a sword," Megan said, awed. "I've known trained warriors who wouldn't have that kind of courage." "It wasn't courage. It was terror. I thought he was going to kill Archer." "That's what makes it courage." Megan's expression grew serious. "Amelia, I know this is overwhelming. The palace, the politics, the expectations. But you should know, Archer's been alone for a long time. Our parents died when he was barely 20, and he's been carrying the weight of the crown ever since. He needed someone like you, someone who sees him, not just his title. I don't know if I'm enough for him." "You are." Megan's certainty was absolute. "Trust me. I've never seen him this happy." A knock at the door interrupted them. A servant entered, carrying an armload of fabric. "The dressmaker sent these for your approval, my lady, for tonight's dinner." Amelia stared at the gowns, silk and velvet in deep jewel tones, all clearly made for someone important. "I can't wear these," she said. "Why not?" Megan was already examining them. "Oh, this green one is perfect. It'll bring out your eyes." "Because I don't belong in clothes like this." Megan fixed her with a look. "You saved my life and brought down a trafficking ring. You absolutely belong in clothes like this. Now try on the green one before I—" She barely recognized herself. The woman looking back was elegant, poised, with color in her cheeks and confidence in her eyes. The gown fit perfectly, and her hair was swept up in a style that was simple but sophisticated. "See?" Megan said smugly. "Absolutely perfect." A second knock. His Majesty requests Lady Amelia's presence in the private dining room. Megan squeezed her hand. Go, knock him dead. Amelia followed the servant through winding corridors, her heart hammering. Finally, they reached a door carved with intricate patterns, and the servant bowed before withdrawing. She pushed the door open. The dining room was intimate. A single table set for two, candles casting warm light, windows overlooking gardens bathed in sunset. And standing by the window was Archer. He'd changed into formal clothes, dark trousers and a jacket embroidered with his family crest. His hair was still damp from bathing, and he'd shaved, making him look younger somehow, less world-weary. When he turned and saw her, he went completely still. His eyes swept over her, slowly, reverently, taking in every detail. The way the gown hugged her waist, the delicate embroidery catching the light, how her hair had been pinned up to expose her neck and shoulders. His gaze lingered there, at her throat, and she watched his pupils dilate, that amber darkening to molten gold. Amelia. Her name came out rough, almost broken. Is this all right? She gestured at the gown, suddenly self-conscious under the intensity of his stare. Megan insisted, You're beautiful. He crossed the room, taking her hands. You've always been beautiful, but seeing you like this. His voice dropped lower, intimate. I'm the luckiest man alive. Heat climbed her cheeks. How was your meeting? Productive. The council is coordinating Drescher's trial, and we've already arrested 3 of his known associates. His expression darkened briefly. It'll take time to dismantle the entire network, but we've made a start. That's good. It is. He led her to the table, pulling out her chair. But I didn't ask you here to discuss politics. He poured wine, something dark and rich that smelled like cherries. I asked you here because I wanted to see you. Date night. They ate slowly, talking about everything. Archer asked about her grandmother's vineyard, and Amelia found herself describing her plans. New vines she wanted to plant, techniques she'd read about, the dream of creating wines that would carry her grandmother's legacy. I'll help however I can, Archer said. Resources, workers, whatever you need. I don't want you to think I'm with you for your resources. I don't. He reached across the table, lacing their fingers together. I think you're with me because despite all evidence suggesting you should run screaming, you've decided I'm worth the risk. Are you? A smile curved her lips, slow and knowing. I hope so. His eyes held hers, that amber burning with promise. I'm going to spend every day trying to prove it. Then his voice dropped, intimate enough that only she could hear. And every night. After dinner, he led her onto a balcony overlooking the city. Lights twinkled below, and the air smelled like night-blooming flowers. I have something for you, Archer said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Amelia's heart skipped. Archer, it's not what you think. Open it. Inside was a key, iron and ornate, clearly old. It's to the palace library, Archer explained. Private section, reserved for family. There are texts about mate bonds, about shifter culture, about everything you might want to know. He paused. I want you to have all the information you need to make an informed choice. No secrets, no hidden details. Just truth. Amelia's throat tightened. Thank you. And this? He produced a second item, a letter, sealed with wax. It's permission to rebuild your grandmother's vineyard with royal resources, workers, materials, funding, whatever you need to restore it to what it was, or make it into something better. You're giving me an out. I'm giving you a choice. Archer's hands framed her face. If you decide this life isn't for you, You'll have the vineyard, independence, security, the legacy your grandmother wanted you to have. I won't trap you with need or obligation. And if I decide I want both, the vineyard and you?" His smile was brilliant. "Then I'll count myself blessed and spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." Amelia kissed him then, standing on her toes, pulling him down to her, pouring everything she felt into it. The bond flared between them, golden and warm, and she felt his heart racing in time with hers. When they broke apart, Archer's eyes were blazing. "Stay tonight," he said. "Not to complete the bond, just to be together. I want to fall asleep with you and wake up knowing it wasn't a dream." He led her through the palace to his chambers, a magnificent suite with a massive bed and a fireplace that could have fit 3 men standing upright. "I'll sleep on the couch," he said immediately. "Don't be silly. Your bed is big enough for 10 people. They changed, Archer behind a screen, Amelia in the bathing room, and met at the bed wearing borrowed sleep clothes that were too large and somehow perfect. Archer pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her, and Amelia felt something in her chest settle, like she'd been searching her whole life for this exact moment, this perfect feeling of safety and belonging. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. His arms tightened. "I love you too, more than I thought is humanly possible." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, the bond humming between them, and the future spread out before them full of possibility. 3 months later, Amelia stood in the vineyard, surveying her work. The vines had been pruned, the irrigation system repaired, the buildings restored. Workers moved through the rows with practiced efficiency, and the air smelled like earth and growing things. It was perfect. She'd spent the months splitting her time between the vineyard and the capital, learning court politics under Megan's patient tutelage, helping coordinate the trials of Drescher's associates, and slowly building a life that felt like it belonged to her. And every moment of it, Archer had been there. Not hovering, not controlling, just present. Supporting her decisions, respecting her autonomy, making it clear that she was his partner in every sense. Last week, she'd used the library key. The texts about mate bonds were extensive, describing the connection, the benefits, the commitment. She'd read every word, asked Archer 1,000 questions, and finally understood what he'd been offering. A partnership. Not ownership, not obligation, but a true joining of equals. The sound of hoofbeats made her turn. Archer rode through the vineyard gate, dismounting with easy grace. He'd come alone, no guards, no entourage. "The vines look good," he said, surveying the work. "They do. Another few months, and we'll have our first harvest." "Your grandmother would be proud." Amelia smiled. "I think so, too." Archer pulled something from his saddlebag, a bottle of wine, clearly expensive. "I brought this. Thought we could toast to new beginnings." "I'd like that." They sat in the shade of an old oak tree, sharing the wine and talking about everything. Megan's latest crusade to reform trafficking laws, the upcoming harvest festival, Amelia's plans to expand the vineyard. Finally, as the sun began to set, Amelia said, "I've decided." Archer went very still. "About?" "The bond. Us. Everything." She turned to face him fully. "I want to complete it, Archer. I want you as my mate, my partner, my husband, if that's what you want too." His expression cracked wide open, joy and relief and love pouring through. Then he stood abruptly. "Wait here, please." He disappeared into the house, leaving Amelia confused and breathless. Had she misread this? But he was back in moments, dropping to one knee in front of her with something clutched in his hand. "I've been carrying this for 6 weeks," Archer said, opening his palm to reveal a ring, dark iron twisted with veins of amber the exact color of his eyes. I had it made the day after you first came to the capital. The iron is from my family's forge, the amber from the mountains where I was born. I wanted you to have something that was part of me. His voice roughened as he took her hand. Amelia, you asked if this is what I want too. I've wanted nothing else since the moment I met you. So yes, I want to be your mate. I want to spend every day proving you chose well. He held her, gaze, vulnerable and open. Will you marry me, Amelia? Tears slipped down her cheeks. You've been carrying that for 6 weeks? Every day, hoping. His thumb brushed her knuckles, praying you'd say yes. Then yes. She was crying and laughing at once. Yes to all of it. The joy that broke across his face was incandescent. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, then pulled her into his lap and kissed her like a man who'd been given everything he'd ever wanted. When they broke apart, Amelia held up her hand, watching the amber catch the dying light. It's beautiful. It's you, he whispered, pressing a kiss just above the ring. Strong and perfect. She settled against his chest, feeling his heartbeat race beneath her ear, the weight of the ring both foreign and right. I can't wait to spend forever with you, she murmured. Archer's arms tightened around her. Starting tonight. They completed the bond that night, under stars and vines, with only the wind as witness. His touch was reverent at first, gentle hands mapping every curve, every sensitive place that made her gasp. Then hunger took over, that shifter intensity she'd only glimpsed before now fully unleashed. He worshipped her with his mouth, his hands, his body, until she was trembling and breathless and calling his name like a prayer. When he finally moved inside her, she felt it, the bond snapping fully into place, a connection deeper than blood, stronger than steel, pleasure and emotion tangling until she couldn't separate one from the other. They moved together, building and cresting, and when they shattered, it was as one being, the bond singing between them. After, when their breathing slowed and the world came back into focus, Archer pulled her close. His voice was wrecked, reverent. My mate, my love, my everything. And Amelia, who'd started this journey afraid and alone, pressed a kiss to his racing heart and whispered back, mine too. A week later, they married. Not a political wedding with pomp and ceremony, but an intimate gathering in the vineyard, just family and close friends, vows spoken under the oak tree where they'd completed their bond. Megan stood as witness, her eyes bright with happy tears. Commander Vale attended, grudgingly admitting that romance wasn't completely terrible, and workers from both the vineyard and the palace filled the rows, celebrating two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. As Archer spoke his vows, his voice steady and sure, his amber eyes never leaving hers, Amelia realized her grandmother had been right. Hope was the thing that kept you human. And love, real, chosen, hard-won love, was the thing that made you whole. I love you, Archer said, his voice carrying across the vineyard. I love you too, Amelia replied, for now and forever. They kissed as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, and every person gathered there knew they were witnessing something rare. A love story that had started with a simple request, I need a bodyguard, and ended with two souls finding exactly what they needed in each other. A beginning, full of promise and possibility, with the rest of their lives stretching out before them like rows of grapes waiting to become something extraordinary. Can you rate this story from 1 to 10? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts, and if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people hear these stories.